So in this lesson, we're going to be completing a tutorial called I Love Dust. It's actually a really amazing tutorial. There is an adjacent PDF to this project that you should download and look at. The vector illustration that we'll be completing will look like this. Just big picture, it's going to be a horizontal canvas. We're going to place a photograph of her and we're going to trace over it. And what you need to look at is, remember, Illustrator is based on drawing shapes with a single color. And those single colors are what, when you start stacking them, start to feel like the image has depth. So we'll notice that just the general skin is one giant shape. The shirt is just one shape, but on top of it, you have darker shapes. And as far as the shadows go, you have darker shadow shapes and even darker. And the highlights too that are in the picture are a single color with a single shape. So that's pretty much how she's put together. So it's not as complicated as it looks, but it does take a little bit of time. And as far as the background goes, this is just a series of effects on shapes. So I'll explain what a lot of this looks like and means. So this gives you step-by-step instructions on how to do this. So we're going to start with this photo, which I provided for you. This is a thumbnail sketch. So anytime we do something, we always want to plan out what it's going to be like before we actually do it. So this is the thumbnail sketch. So we see that she's placed on the rule of thirds in this frame. Her body language reads towards the negative 2/3. In the background, we've got a series of clouds. We have an island. We have stars in the sky, and they have different effects on them. So where we're going to pick up, I'm going to help us set up this particular project. We can do all this together. But we're going to start with number 6. So we're going to start by tracing the basic body shape, which is one big shape. And it will continue on with shadows and then highlights, and we'll move to the background. So don't be overwhelmed by this. Yes, it is a bit of work and this will take some time. But we're trying to put together everything that we've learned on how to use the pen tool, how to create shapes, and how to fill those shapes with with color. All right, so first of all, let's go to File, New. And as always, hit pause, rewind, fast forward to feel like you're not being left behind. We're going to go make a print document. And this print document is actually going to be horizontal. So we want to make sure that it is horizontal. And the standard letter is fine. So we'll go ahead and create that. Provided with this tutorial is also the photograph of the girl. The file is called girl.jpg. What you're going to want to do is open it up or download it, or we can even just copy and paste it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply just copy it, and then I'm going to come over here and paste it. And you can also, again, go to File, Place, and place the file called girl.jpg if you save it to your desktop or to your computer. So what we're going to do is we have her, and we can also scale her down a little bit. She's going to approximately take up about this amount of space in this file. And I'm going to do some of this for you, and I'm going to do the background, but I'm not going to do this whole tutorial with you. You will continue on and work on it on your own. But as I look at this and as we set this up, right now we have a layer that she is on. And I can lock it so that I don't accidentally draw on that layer. I want to draw on a new layer. And so there's a lock that if you just click here, it locks. And what I want to do is make a new layer. So I'm going to click this little paragraph right here in the layers palette and pick new layer. So on this layer, remember there's a difference between this being selected and I'm working on that versus me working on this. So we want to make sure that we're on the appropriate layer. So to do this, we want to get all our anchor points in first, and then we're going to go back and we're going to fill in all the color later. So we're going to use the pen tool. We want to draw with a black stroke and no fill, so I'm going to click none so that there's no fill, because if we draw with a fill, we'll be hiding our work. So watch, if I draw, I start hiding everything, and I don't want to do that. So what I do want to do is draw with a black stroke and no fill. And my goal, and I'm going to do this quickly, you guys will do a better job than I, is I'm going to click and drag, click and drag. There's no points on a curve. You only click and drag everywhere it changes direction, and she is all curves. We as people have curves. So we want to click and drag because we need the handle to help make that curve. Now I'm zoomed all the way out because I want to get all my anchor points in first. And I can begin by doing a poor job. I don't really care exactly what it looks like. And I can come back in a little bit and clean it all up to make it look a lot nicer. But for now, I'm just trying to get a lot of the points in. Come back later, like I said, and fix it. As far as the skin goes down here, we can just kind of run it wild because it's going to be covered up by the shirt. I'm going to zoom back down here at this part of her finger in a little bit and show you what I did because everybody kind of gets lost in that part. But I'm just going around this, getting all of these anchor points in for all of the skin, just the general shape of the skin, and I'm clicking and dragging a lot because everything is curves. I don't care about the black hair, I just want to include the ear because the hair is going to be placed on top of it. So no points on a curve, only where it changes direction. Coming around. And I'll come back to where I started. And now I have a complete shape. So this is a complete shape. And if I sample a color, I can use this little color picker and just sample anywhere on the skin and it'll make it that color. So this is the shape that I drew just for the general skin tone. And I can flip it over and hide it right now if I want, or I can leave it black. But what I do need to do is, like always, just come back in here and start cleaning up a lot of these anchor points to clean up the shapes. So we want to fix it now that it's in. And I could spend a lot of time doing this, and you guys will, and we're going to pretend like I did a great job. Anyway, from there, what we would look for is the shadows. So the shadows is the same idea. So if I draw this out, say for instance, like right in here, I'm going to draw this, I'm going to come back around to include the shadow. The shadow kind of comes wild out here and kind of comes back. And then when I'm done, I can click. And to sample again, I can just sample that color. So now I have a shadow like that. And then I even have a darker shadow in here. So maybe I just do this really quickly. And then this shadow, like I said, is even a little bit darker. So in the neck, there's a pretty cool shadow that's happening in here. So underneath the chin, you can draw this out. Let me flip this over so I'm not hiding it. And I'm just looking at the light. I'm looking at the contrast in light. So we're just going to trust the process as well, that when we get to the other side of this and it's all put together and it's not just a bunch of shapes, that it actually looks nice. So again, I can sample that. Of course, I want to fix some of this stuff. But I'll just flip all of this over for you so you get an idea of how things are starting to develop. So it's not clean. I got to clean it up, I know, but we're starting to get all of the elements in here. And then I'll show you guys that I told you I was going to show you that finger because everybody kind of gets lost in the finger because this finger overlaps that other part of her body. So what I'm doing here is I want to keep the line moving. So it's right in here. I went down, back, and around again. So that's how we're gonna just kind of work with that. So it's merely a suggestion of what this looks like, but we want to keep that hand moving. And then lastly, as far as their shirt, we can just draw a shape. I can go right on through the hand because I can stick, well, either the hand is going to be in front or the skin is going to be in front. So one of them I'll have to do a nicer job on. But that gives you an idea. So there's the shirt. And if I do have the skin tone up, I can arrange this so that this element, I can go to Object, Arrange, and send it to the back. Grab the picture as well. The picture's already at the bottom. So I probably will need to clean up the top of the shirt from that skin right there. But they are two separate colors. So the skin is a separate color from the shirt, which is a separate color. So these have to be two different shapes. You can't draw the whole thing, do the skin and shirt, because the skin is a separate color and the shirt is a separate color. So they're different shapes. They have to be different shapes. Of course, you guys will go in and you'll draw details for the eyes and the nose, and you'll just kind of make inferences. You're not literally going to draw a nose on her. You're just going to draw the shadows. So here we got the nostrils in here, and I'll just sample that. And then again, let's pretend like I did the other one, just for the sake of this. I'll draw the rest of the shadows. Let me turn it over. so I can see what I'm doing. And then here I might sample just a middle skin tone in there and arrange them so they're on top. So I'm not drawing the nose, I'm just drawing the shadows and the highlights. Draw the highlights. And right now it looks horrible, but when we get all the shapes together, it'll actually start to look really, really good and really clean. So the fewer anchor points that you use, the better this whole thing is going to look. So go ahead and work on her, draw her in the parts that the tutorial shows, but also that I showed. And you can pause it here, but I'm not going to pause. I'm going to continue on. So if you need to come back to this point in the video, you can. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to work on the background. So the background is a series of different types of shapes. So I'm going to turn the layer that she is on off, and I can turn that one off too. And I'm going to make a new layer. And we can even label it too. This can be the background. Probably be good if we do label these things. And this layer also will be below, so I'm going to drag it below them. So this is in the back. I'm going to call it background. So in this, what do we have? The tutorial shows that we will have a series of different shapes. And in those shapes, we're going to make a rectangle. We're going to make a, if I scroll down to it, we're going to make a rectangle and put a gradient in it. We're going to draw a line and repeat that line many, many times. We're going to draw circles, and we're going to make stars. So let me say that again. We're going to make a rectangle. We're going to draw a line, a circle, and a star. So it's not as complicated as it sounds. But this is the process that I would go through to do this. So to begin, I would make a rectangle. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than the document because I want to make sure it goes all the way to the edges. And it's filled with a color, but I want to fill it with a gradient. So the gradient can be found under Window Gradient. And I'm going to show you how gradients work. So with this gradient, I'm going to actually literally just click on the gradient. So now it's filled with black and white. The way gradients work is this. So if I open up if I go to my swatches, my color swatches, I can take them and set them adjacent to each other, and I can drag colors in and let go and move them around. Again, I can drag colors in from the swatches palette, or if I don't like those colors, I can click and drag them out and it will remove them. So that's how gradients work. And for the sake of this tutorial, it says to rotate it 90 degrees. So I have black on top and white on the bottom. So now we've already drawn a rectangle and we put a gradient in it. Now we're going to draw a series of lines because we really want to make diamonds. So I'm going to kind of go off to the side here for a second. So over here, I'm going to use the pen tool. And again, I'm going to reset. I want to draw with a black line and no fill. I'm going to click. I'm going to hold the shift key because that makes it snap to being straight. And I'm going to click. And to let go again, hold the Alt key and click. So I have one line, but I need many. So if I go to edit copy, I copied it, and I go to edit paste, it'll put it somewhere out there. Or I can go to edit paste in place, and Adobe InDesign has this as well. It's very helpful. It'll put it directly on top of it. So now if I use the arrow key on my keyboard and I hit it, it's going to move it over 1 pixel at a time. And that's really not very many. So I'm going to delete and paste it again. What I would recommend is as you go to edit, paste in place, and now I'm going to hold the shift key and hit the arrow, and it's going to move it over 10 pixels. So edit, paste in place. There's also quick commands. I'm going to hold the shift key and I'm going to move it over with the arrow once, so it moves it over 10 pixels. There's different ways to do this. There's ways to expedite this process, but for the sake of us just learning, let's just do this manually. So now I'm just going to take all 3 lines and I'm going to copy them and I'm going to paste all 3 in place and hold the shift key and move it over. And I can copy that and paste that in place and hold the shift key and move that over. Then I can copy all of that and paste that in place and move that over. Copy all of that, paste in place and move that over. And I can take all of this and copy this and paste this in place and move it over. So it's going faster and faster now. And then lastly, maybe I just do it one more time. I'm going to copy it and paste all of that in place, hold the shift key and move it over with the arrow. All right, so now I've got all these lines. All I did was make one line, but I just copy and paste a bunch of times. So now I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to make them a little taller. And I'm going to group them so they become one element. So go to Object, Group, and group it into one element. And this element will just go on top. And if I zoom in, I now have lines. But I want to make diamonds. So I'm going to copy this thing and paste it. And then I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees. So I'm just turning it, stretching it out, make sure it fills the whole space. Anything that goes beyond the white won't be there when the file is exported. So if I zoom in, now I got diamonds. So what did I do? I made a rectangle, put a gradient. I made a line and repeated it. So now I'm going to make circles because in the background it shows that we have clouds in the back. You can do them however you want, but I'm going to use the ellipse tool. And if I look at the tutorial one more time, I'm going to see that they are stacked like this. There's black in the back, gray in the front, or in the middle, and white in the front. And they have them going all beautiful like this. And you can do whatever you want. So what I'm going to do is start with the black clouds. So they're fills. I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I'm going to kind of just go quickly on this so you get the idea. So just kind of clicking and dragging and just adding all these happy little clouds. Yep. And then now I'm going to pick gray. So I'm going to do a series of middle colored, mid-tone colored clouds. So, and again, we can just kind of stack them and just kind of do what you want. They can kind of move around or go very big like the tutorial showed, or however you want, but I'm just showing you here. And then lastly, we're going to get white colored clouds because they're in the foreground. So I'll just kind of stack up all these things, and we can make it look kind of fun. All right, so now we got all these things stacked up. So now we've made circles. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to make stars. There are stars in the sky. So behind the rectangle and ellipse tool, there's a star tool. And I can just click and drag out a star. Or I can just click and just kind of modify it if I want. But I'm going to make this whatever color I feel like it needs to be made out of. And then we're going to apply an effect to it. So I can rotate it too. So I'm going to go to Effect. Let me find it here. It's under Distort and Transform. And the effect is Pucker and Bloat. So if I have preview on, if I mess with it, I can see that it's starting to make these kind of wild shapes. This way, I go the other way, makes this kind of a thing. So what you're going to do is you're just going to make a series of stars in different colors and different scales. Do different things with the Pucker and Bloat tool, and you'll have all kinds of them in the sky, and there'll be all these stars. And again, different effects. And then lastly, if I want, I can set the opacity on these so they're not so brilliant. There's the opacity, and I can do them individually and just kind of pull them back a little bit. And if I turn what I've drawn on her back on, when it's all done and it all comes together, it'll actually be quite cool. So lastly, in here, I think the tutorial shows that there is some sort of an island in here. I'm just going to sample it real quick. There's also a tree, a bonsai tree, or just any tree. So mine's horrible and yours will be amazing. So there's my tree. And when it all comes together, it's going to look something like the original, which is this. So here she is. Here's all these stars. There's lines, gradients, circles. If I go to the very top, I can see over here, I see the island and I see the tree. So as I look at this, what you guys are going to do is do this whole thing, except you will skip the mist. You don't have to do the mist. If you don't want to. If you do, it's great. And also there's an overlay on here that we are not going to place on it as well. It does make it look very cool. And then this talks about just general masking. I'll skip this part because I know what I said was a lot of things. And we'll come to do this part later on. So hopefully that helps. I hope by the time you guys are done, I know this is difficult, but you're going to be so good in Illustrator. And that's the reason why I've assigned this to you, is so that you get really, really good in Illustrator. You're super proficient with the pen tool, You know how to use the program, and then going forward, you can draw anything that you want.